What if I told you that Atlantis wasn't just a myth, but a warning from one of history's greatest philosophers about the collapse of civilization itself? In 360 BC, Plato didn't write about Atlantis as entertainment. He embedded real historical events, actual geographical locations, and genuine archaeological evidence into what he called a noble lie. But here's what will shock you. Recent discoveries have uncovered submerged cities, advanced ancient technologies, and geological catastrophes that match Plato's account with terrifying precision. Today, we're deciphering the truth behind history's most famous lost civilization, and what we've found will change everything you thought you knew about our ancient past. Let's start with something that will blow your mind. Plato never intended for anyone to believe Atlantis was real. Yet, ironically, he may have based it on something that actually happened. This contradiction is the key to unlocking the entire mystery. In 360 BC, Plato was writing Timaeus and Critias, two dialogues that would accidentally create history's most enduring mystery. But here's what most people don't know. Plato was facing a crisis. Athens had just lost the Peloponnesian War, Greek democracy was crumbling, and philosophers like himself were being executed for corrupting the youth. Sound familiar? This wasn't just academic writing. This was political survival. Plato claimed he heard the Atlantis story from Solon, Athens' greatest lawgiver, who supposedly learned it from Egyptian priests in Sais around 590 BC. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is something that deserves a like because most history channels won't tell you this. Plato was deliberately creating what he called a pseudos geneia, a noble lie designed to teach moral lessons about the dangers of hubris and imperial overreach. However, and this is crucial, Plato was too sophisticated a thinker to create pure fiction. Ancient philosophers didn't work that way. They embedded real events, real places, and real historical patterns into their allegorical stories. It's like a historical code waiting to be cracked. The first clue comes from Plato's incredibly specific details. He doesn't just say, "There was an island." He gives us exact measurements. Atlantis was larger than Libya and Asia combined. The central city had alternating rings of land and water, exactly 27 stadia in diameter. The main temple was covered in silver, gold, and orichalcum, a mysterious metal that we're only now beginning to understand. But here's what's truly remarkable. Plato describes advanced engineering that seemed impossible for his time. He mentions hot and cold running water, sophisticated harbor systems, and metallurgical techniques that weren't supposed to exist in the Bronze Age. For 2,400 years, scholars dismissed these as fantasy. But recent archaeological discoveries are forcing us to reconsider everything. Take the Antikythera mechanism, discovered in 1901 but not properly understood until the 1970s. This ancient Greek device was a complex astronomical computer, demonstrating technological sophistication that we thought was impossible before the Renaissance. If the Greeks could build computers 2,000 years ago, what else were ancient civilizations capable of? Then there's the mystery of orichalcum itself. For centuries, scholars assumed this was a fictional metal. But in 2015, marine archaeologists discovered 39 ingots of orichalcum in a 2,600-year-old shipwreck off Sicily. Chemical analysis revealed it was a brass-like alloy of copper and zinc, exactly matching ancient descriptions. Suddenly, Plato's imaginary metal became very real. The geographical details are equally intriguing. Plato places Atlantis beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar, in the Atlantic Ocean. He describes it as controlling other islands and parts of the continent beyond. This matches perfectly with Bronze Age trade networks that we're only now discovering through underwater archaeology. Most tellingly, Plato gives us a precise date for Atlantis's destruction, 9,000 years before his own time, which would place it around 9,600 BC. For decades, this seemed absurdly ancient. But recent evidence suggests this period was marked by catastrophic climate change, massive floods, and the mysterious collapse of advanced civilizations worldwide. The Younger Dryas period, from 12,900 to 11,700 years ago, saw global temperatures plummet, ice sheets advance, and sea levels rise dramatically. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, built around 9,500 BC, demonstrates that sophisticated civilizations existed exactly when Plato claimed Atlantis was destroyed. These weren't primitive hunter-gatherers. They were organizing massive construction projects and creating complex astronomical alignments. So here's what we're dealing with. Either Plato was an incredibly lucky guesser who somehow predicted archaeological discoveries that wouldn't be made for 2,400 years, or he was working from real historical sources that preserved memories of an actual Bronze Age catastrophe. The evidence is pointing increasingly toward the latter, and what that means for our understanding of ancient history is absolutely revolutionary. Now, let's dive into something that will completely change how you see ancient Egypt, and trust me, you'll want to hit that like button because this information is rarely discussed outside academic circles. Plato claimed his Atlantis story came from Egyptian priests who kept records going back thousands of years. Most scholars dismissed this as fiction, but recent discoveries suggest the Egyptians really did preserve historical memories far older than we ever imagined. The key lies in understanding how ancient Egyptian record-keeping actually worked. Unlike the Greeks, who relied heavily on oral tradition, the Egyptians maintained written records across millennia. They had something called the Palermo Stone and other king lists that traced Egyptian history back to around 3100 BC. But here's what's fascinating. These records speak of even earlier periods, times they called Zep Tepi, or the first time, when God supposedly ruled Egypt directly. For generations, Egyptologists treated Zep Tepi as pure mythology. But recent archaeological evidence is suggesting these mythological periods might preserve actual historical memories of advanced prehistoric civilizations. The Great Sphinx, for example, shows water erosion patterns that could only have been created during periods of heavy rainfall, something that last occurred in Egypt around 10,000 BC, exactly the time frame Plato gives for Atlantis. Solon's visit to Sais around 590 BC wasn't just a casual trip. Sais was one of Egypt's most important religious centers, home to the cult of Neith, a goddess associated with weaving, war, and wisdom. The priests there claimed to maintain the oldest records in Egypt, including accounts of catastrophic floods and lost civilizations. What's remarkable is that these flood narratives match geological evidence of massive sea level changes at the end of the last ice age. The priest who supposedly told Solon about Atlantis made a crucial statement: "You Greeks are like children, you have no ancient traditions." This wasn't just an insult. It was a reference to the fact that Greek civilization had experienced multiple collapses and dark ages that destroyed their historical records, while Egypt maintained continuous records across millennia. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this definitely deserves your like if you're finding this as mind-blowing as I am. Recent analysis of ancient Egyptian texts reveals references to sea peoples, advanced maritime civilizations, and catastrophic floods that correlate exactly with the end of the last ice age. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, dating to around 1600 BC but copying much older texts, contains medical knowledge so advanced that some procedures weren't rediscovered until the 19th century. The Egyptians also preserved detailed astronomical records that demonstrate their civilization was far more sophisticated than previously believed. The Dendera zodiac, carved during the Ptolemaic period but based on much older sources, shows astronomical configurations that wouldn't be visible again for thousands of years. This suggests the Egyptians maintained observational records spanning vast periods of time. DNA analysis of ancient Egyptian mummies has revealed another shocking discovery. Many show genetic markers suggesting contact with populations from across the Mediterranean, the Atlantic, and even the Americas. This points to extensive trade networks and maritime capabilities that we're only beginning to understand. If the Egyptians could preserve genetic evidence of these ancient connections, they certainly could have preserved historical records of advanced civilizations like Atlantis. The construction techniques used in ancient Egypt also support the idea that they inherited knowledge from even older civilizations. The precision of the Great Pyramid's construction exceeds what should have been possible with the tools and techniques we think they possessed. The blocks are fitted together with tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters, and the overall structure is aligned with astronomical phenomena with incredible accuracy. Recent ground-penetrating radar surveys around the Giza complex have revealed extensive underground chambers and tunnel systems that predate the known pyramids. These discoveries suggest that the famous monuments we see today were built on top of much older structures, possibly dating back to the very period when Plato claimed Atlantis existed. The most compelling evidence comes from the so-called inventory stela, which claims the Great Sphinx was already ancient when the pyramids were built. While many Egyptologists dispute its authenticity, geological evidence increasingly supports the idea that the Sphinx is far older than traditionally believed. What this means is revolutionary. If the Egyptian priests really did maintain records going back 10,000 years or more, then Plato's account of receiving the Atlantis story from them becomes not just plausible, but probable. The Egyptians weren't just preserving myths, they were maintaining actual historical records of prehistoric advanced civilizations. Prepare yourself for what might be the most shocking revelation yet, and I guarantee this will earn your like because what I'm about to show you connects Plato's Atlantis to one of the most catastrophic periods in Earth's history. Around 12,900 years ago, our planet experienced a climate disaster so severe it nearly wiped out human civilization entirely. This event, called the Younger Dryas, matches Plato's timeline for Atlantis's destruction with terrifying accuracy. The Younger Dryas wasn't just climate change as we understand it today. This was a global catastrophe that happened almost overnight in geological terms. Within a matter of decades, global temperatures plummeted by up to 15 degrees Celsius. Massive ice sheets advanced across North America and Europe. Sea levels rose and fell dramatically. And most importantly for our Atlantis investigation, this period saw the sudden disappearance of numerous advanced prehistoric cultures worldwide. Here's what makes this absolutely mind-blowing. Recent ice core data from Greenland shows that the climate transitions during the Younger Dryas happened not over centuries, but over periods as short as a single decade. Imagine entire civilizations having to adapt to massive environmental changes within a human lifetime. Many simply couldn't survive. The cause of the Younger Dryas has been one of geology's greatest mysteries, but recent evidence points to something extraordinary. A massive comet impact or airburst around 12,900 years ago. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, supported by scientists like Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson, suggests that a fragmenting comet struck North America, triggering massive wildfires, floods, and climate disruption. Evidence for this impact is found in a layer of sediment called the black mat that appears in geological cores worldwide, dated to exactly 12,900 years ago. This layer contains high concentrations of platinum, nanodiamonds, and other materials that could only have been created by a cosmic impact. It's like a geological crime scene preserved in Earth's layers. But here's what connects this directly to Atlantis. The sea level changes during this period were absolutely massive. When the impact melted portions of the North American ice sheet, it created what geologists call meltwater pulses that raised sea levels by several meters within centuries. Any coastal civilization during this period would have been completely submerged. Recent underwater archaeology has revealed submerged settlements worldwide that date to exactly this period. Off the coast of India, marine archaeologists have discovered the ruins of Dvarka, described in ancient Sanskrit texts as a magnificent city that was swallowed by the sea. Carbon dating places its submersion at around 9,500 BC, remarkably close to Plato's date for Atlantis. Similar discoveries have been made in the Mediterranean. The submerged city of Pavlopetri off Greece dates to around 2800 BC, but it sits on top of much older settlements. Ground-penetrating sonar has revealed structures beneath the current ruins that could be thousands of years older. The most compelling evidence comes from Doggerland, a massive landmass that once connected Britain to continental Europe. During the last ice age, this area was dry land populated by advanced hunter-gatherer societies. But as sea levels rose during the Younger Dryas and its aftermath, Doggerland was gradually submerged. The final submersion occurred around 6200 BC when an underwater avalanche off Norway created a massive tsunami that swept across what remained of Doggerland. Archaeological evidence from Doggerland reveals sophisticated societies with advanced tool-making, complex social structures, and extensive trade networks. These weren't primitive cave dwellers. They were creating art, building monuments, and maintaining complex communities across thousands of square kilometers. The most shocking discovery comes from recent analysis of coral reef formations in the Atlantic. These underwater formations preserve evidence of rapid sea level changes that match exactly the time frame Plato gives for Atlantis. Core samples from these reefs show evidence of massive environmental disruption around 9600 BC, including sudden changes in water temperature and salinity that would have devastated any maritime civilization. What's particularly fascinating is that indigenous oral traditions worldwide preserve memories of great floods and lost lands that correlate with the Younger Dryas period. Native American traditions speak of a time when the world was covered in ice and then suddenly flooded. Australian Aboriginal stories describe the submersion of coastal lands that we now know really did occur as sea levels rose after the Ice Age. The geological evidence is becoming undeniable. The period when Plato claimed Atlantis was destroyed was indeed marked by catastrophic environmental changes that could have wiped out advanced civilizations. If Atlantis existed, the Younger Dryas period would explain not just how it was destroyed, but why so few traces of it remain. What I'm about to show you will fundamentally challenge everything you thought you knew about ancient civilizations, and this absolutely deserves your like because these archaeological discoveries are rewriting human history. Over the past few decades, archaeologists have uncovered evidence of sophisticated prehistoric cultures that existed exactly when and where Plato claimed Atlantis thrived. Let's start with Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, discovered in 1963 but not properly excavated until the 1990s. This site has shattered our understanding of prehistoric capabilities. Built around 9500 BC, just 100 years after Plato's date for Atlantis's destruction, Göbekli Tepe consists of massive stone circles with intricate carvings that demonstrate advanced planning, sophisticated tool-making, and complex astronomical knowledge. But here's what makes Göbekli Tepe absolutely revolutionary. It was deliberately buried around 800 BC. Someone took enormous effort to completely cover this sophisticated complex with tons of earth. Why would an advanced civilization deliberately hide their greatest architectural achievement? Unless they were trying to preserve it from some catastrophic event, exactly the kind of disaster Plato described destroying Atlantis. The carvings at Göbekli Tepe tell a story that matches Plato's account with unsettling precision. Pillar 43, known as the Vulture Stone, appears to depict a comet impact through astronomical symbolism. Martin Sweatman's analysis suggests these carvings record the exact cosmic event that triggered the Younger Dryas catastrophe around 10,950 BC. Recent ground-penetrating radar has revealed that Göbekli Tepe is just the tip of the iceberg. The site extends far underground, with at least 20 additional circles that haven't been excavated. If the visible portions required coordinated effort from thousands of people, the complete site represents an organizational capability that shouldn't have existed in the supposed Stone Age. Moving to the Mediterranean, underwater archaeologists have made discoveries that seem straight out of Plato's description. The submerged city of Baiae off Italy reveals advanced Roman engineering, but recent sonar mapping has discovered much older structures beneath the Roman ruins. These deeper layers show construction techniques and urban planning that predate known Roman capabilities by thousands of years. Near Sardinia, the mysterious Nuragic civilization built over 7,000 stone towers between 1900 and 730 BC. But recent analysis suggests many of these towers were built on foundations that are far older. The precision of the stonework rivals anything built by later civilizations, and the towers show evidence of advanced metallurgy, including the working of complex alloys. The discovery that should really get your attention involves recent DNA analysis of ancient populations. Genetic studies of European, Middle Eastern, and North African populations reveal evidence of a mysterious group that geneticists call Ghost Population Y. This group contributed significantly to the genetic makeup of civilizations around the Mediterranean, but they appear in the genetic record suddenly around 10,000 BC and then largely disappear. This ghost population shows genetic markers suggesting they were a maritime people with advanced navigation capabilities. Their genetic signature appears across vast distances, from Ireland to Turkey to North Africa, suggesting extensive sea travel during exactly the period when Plato claimed Atlantis existed as a maritime empire. Recent analysis of ancient pollen and sediment cores from the Atlantic Ocean has revealed another shocking discovery. During the period from 12,000 to 8,000 BC, there's evidence of large-scale agriculture and land management in areas that are now underwater. Pollen analysis shows cultivation of domesticated crops in regions that are currently 40 to 60 meters below sea level. This underwater agriculture suggests the existence of substantial populations living on land masses that were subsequently submerged as sea levels rose after the Ice Age. The scale of this agriculture implies organized societies with sophisticated understanding of farming, irrigation, and land management. Exactly the kind of advanced civilization Plato described. The metallurgical evidence is equally compelling. Recent discoveries of prehistoric bronze artifacts in Ireland and Britain date to around 2500 BC, but chemical analysis reveals they were made from copper that could only have come from mines in the Great Lakes region of North America. This suggests transatlantic trade networks thousands of years before Columbus. Exactly the kind of advanced maritime capability Plato attributed to Atlantis. Perhaps most remarkably, analysis of ancient harbor installations around the Mediterranean reveals construction techniques that mirror Plato's description of Atlantean engineering. The ancient harbor at Caesarea Maritima used hydraulic concrete that could set underwater, a technology that wasn't supposed to exist until Roman times, but recent analysis suggests the technique is much older. These archaeological discoveries paint a picture of prehistoric civilizations far more sophisticated than traditional histories suggest. They possessed advanced engineering, extensive trade networks, sophisticated astronomy, and maritime capabilities that allowed them to traverse vast distances. Most importantly, they existed during exactly the time period when Plato claimed Atlantis flourished and was destroyed. Get ready for what might be the most convincing physical evidence for Atlantis ever discovered. And I'm telling you right now, this deserves your like because what I'm about to show you will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about African geography and ancient civilizations. Deep in the Sahara Desert of Mauritania lies a geological formation so perfectly circular, so precisely matching Plato's description, that it's forcing archaeologists to reconsider whether Atlantis might have been hiding in plain sight all along. The Richat Structure, also known as the Eye of the Sahara, is a massive circular formation stretching 50 kilometers across. For decades, geologists assumed it was either a meteorite crater or a volcanic formation. But recent analysis has revealed something extraordinary. It's neither. The Richat Structure appears to be a natural geological formation that was extensively modified by human activity during prehistoric times. Here's what makes this absolutely mind-blowing. The Richat Structure matches Plato's description of Atlantis with shocking precision. Plato described Atlantis as a series of alternating rings of land and water, with the central city surrounded by 3 circular moats. The Richat Structure consists of concentric circular ridges that create exactly this pattern. The outer ring has a diameter that matches Plato's measurements when converted from ancient Greek units. Recent satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar have revealed that the Richat Structure was once surrounded by water. Geological evidence shows that the Sahara was a lush, well-watered region until around 5,000 years ago. During the time when Plato claimed Atlantis existed, the Richat Structure would have been surrounded by rivers, lakes, and fertile grasslands. Exactly the environment he described. But here's where it gets really incredible. Archaeological surveys around the Richat Structure have uncovered evidence of sophisticated prehistoric settlements. Stone tools, pottery fragments, and construction materials suggest that this area supported large populations with advanced technological capabilities. Carbon dating places some of these artifacts at around 11,000 years old, remarkably close to Plato's timeline. The geological composition of the Richat structure also matches Plato's description in ways that seem almost impossible to explain as coincidence. Plato mentioned that Atlantis was rich in metals, particularly gold, silver, copper, and the mysterious orichalcum. Geological surveys of the Richat structure have revealed significant deposits of gold, copper, and other metals. The area shows evidence of ancient mining activity that predates known African metallurgy by thousands of years. Recent analysis of the rock formations within the Richat structure has revealed something even more extraordinary. The concentric rings show evidence of artificial modification, cutting, shaping, and placement that couldn't have occurred naturally. Ground-penetrating radar has detected what appear to be buried structures, including foundations, walls, and complex drainage systems. The most compelling evidence comes from analysis of sediment cores taken from within the Richat structure. These cores show layers of sediment that could only have been deposited by flowing water, suggesting that the circular depressions were once filled with water exactly as Plato described. Chemical analysis of these sediments reveals evidence of large-scale human activity, including metalworking, agriculture, and construction. What's particularly fascinating is the discovery of ancient harbor installations around what would have been the coastline when the Sahara was green. These installations show sophisticated understanding of hydraulic engineering, with breakwaters, channels, and docking facilities that rival anything built by later civilizations. The scale of these installations suggests they were designed to handle large ocean-going vessels, exactly what you'd expect from Plato's description of Atlantis as a maritime empire. Recent climate modeling has revealed that the transition from green Sahara to desert happened relatively rapidly, over a period of just a few centuries around 5,000 years ago. This rapid desertification could explain why a sophisticated civilization in this region disappeared from historical records. They didn't sink beneath the ocean, they were buried beneath advancing sand dunes. The magnetic signature of the Richat structure also reveals anomalies that suggest large-scale metalworking activity. Magnetometer surveys have detected buried metal objects and slag deposits that indicate extensive mining and smelting operations. The distribution of these magnetic anomalies matches the pattern you'd expect from a major metallurgical center. Perhaps most remarkably, recent analysis of ancient trade routes reveals that the Richat structure was positioned at the intersection of major prehistoric trading networks. Routes connecting sub-Saharan Africa with the Mediterranean, the Atlantic coast with the Nile Valley, all converged in the region around the Richat structure. This positioning would have made it a natural center for a trading empire exactly like the one Plato described. The evidence is becoming overwhelming. The Richat structure represents physical proof that sophisticated civilizations existed in exactly the time and place where geological and archaeological evidence suggests they should have, based on Plato's account of Atlantis. What I'm about to reveal will completely shatter your understanding of what lies beneath our oceans, and you definitely need to hit that like button because these underwater discoveries are being deliberately kept quiet by mainstream archaeology. Advanced sonar technology and deep-sea exploration have uncovered submerged cities worldwide that match Plato's descriptions with such precision that it's becoming impossible to dismiss Atlantis as pure fiction. Let's start with the most shocking discovery: Yonaguni Monument off the coast of Japan. Discovered in 1987 by dive tour operator Kihachiro Aratake, this massive underwater structure stretches over 150 meters long and rises 25 meters from the seafloor. Marine geologist Masaki Kimura has spent decades studying Yonaguni and concluded that it's definitely artificial, a man-made monument that was submerged when sea levels rose at the end of the last ice age. The precision of Yonaguni's construction is what makes it truly extraordinary. The structure features perfect right angles, precise geometric cuts, and stepped pyramidal formations that could never occur naturally. Tool marks are clearly visible on the stone surfaces, and the overall design shows sophisticated understanding of engineering and astronomy. Carbon dating of organic materials found within the structure suggests it was built around 12,000 years ago, exactly when Plato claimed Atlantis existed. But Yonaguni is just the beginning. Off the coast of Cuba, deep-sea exploration has revealed what appears to be an entire submerged city lying 2,000 feet beneath the ocean surface. Using advanced sonar technology, marine engineer Polina Zalitsky has mapped structures that appear to be pyramids, roads, and building foundations covering an area of several square kilometers. The Cuban discovery is particularly compelling because the structures are built from blocks weighing several tons each, precisely fitted together without mortar. Exactly the construction technique Plato attributed to Atlantean builders. The depth at which these structures lie suggests they were submerged around 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, again matching Plato's timeline perfectly. Recent advances in underwater archaeology technology are revealing the true extent of these submerged civilizations. Side-scan sonar, magnetometry, and underwater robotics have mapped extensive ruins across the Mediterranean seafloor. Off the coast of Spain, researchers have discovered what appears to be a massive harbor complex with breakwaters, channels, and docking facilities that could accommodate ships much larger than anything known from ancient times. The most advanced discoveries come from the use of satellite altimetry, technology that can detect underwater topographical features by measuring tiny variations in sea surface height. This technology has revealed linear formations on the Atlantic seafloor that appear to be artificial structures. These formations stretch for hundreds of kilometers and show the kind of geometric precision that suggests intelligent design. Ground-penetrating sonar deployed from underwater vehicles has revealed even more shocking details. Beneath the sediment layers that have accumulated over millennia, these instruments detect what appear to be intact buildings, roadways, and even what might be harbor installations. The preservation is so complete that individual rooms and corridors are visible in the sonar images. What makes these discoveries particularly compelling is their global distribution. Similar underwater structures have been found off the coasts of India, Malta, Peru, and even Antarctica. This worldwide pattern suggests that advanced maritime civilizations existed during the period when global sea levels were much lower. Exactly what you'd expect if Plato's account of a global Atlantean empire were based on historical reality. The technology used to explore these sites continues to reveal new details that support Plato's account. Underwater magnetometry has detected large metal objects buried within these submerged ruins, possibly tools, weapons, or decorative elements made from the advanced alloys Plato described. Chemical analysis of sediment samples from these sites shows evidence of metalworking, large-scale construction, and intensive human occupation. Recent developments in deep-sea archaeology have also revealed evidence of advanced engineering that shouldn't have existed in prehistoric times. Underwater ruins off Malta show evidence of precisely cut stone blocks, sophisticated drainage systems, and architectural features that demonstrate advanced mathematical and engineering knowledge. The most remarkable discovery comes from analysis of the construction techniques used in these underwater sites. Many show evidence of megalithic construction, the use of massive stone blocks fitted together with such precision that modern tools would be required to replicate the work. This suggests that whoever built these structures possessed technological capabilities far beyond what we attribute to ancient civilizations. Perhaps most significantly, dating of organic materials found within these underwater ruins consistently points to the same time period, 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. This remarkable consistency across sites separated by thousands of kilometers suggests a coordinated civilization with global reach, exactly what Plato described when he wrote about Atlantis controlling territories across the known world. Prepare yourself for evidence so compelling that it's forcing geneticists to rewrite the story of human migration. And trust me, this revelation deserves your like because what DNA analysis is revealing about ancient populations connects directly to Plato's account of Atlantis in ways that will blow your mind. Recent advances in ancient DNA extraction and analysis have uncovered genetic signatures of mysterious prehistoric populations that appear exactly when and where Plato claimed Atlantis existed. The breakthrough came with the analysis of what geneticists call ghost population Y, a mysterious group that contributed significantly to the genetic makeup of ancient Europeans, North Africans, and Middle Eastern populations around 10,000 years ago. This population appears suddenly in the genetic record, shows evidence of advanced maritime capabilities, and then largely disappears. Exactly the pattern you'd expect from Plato's description of Atlantis as a powerful civilization that was suddenly destroyed. Here's what makes this absolutely extraordinary. Genetic analysis of ancient remains from across the Mediterranean reveals that ghost population Y possessed unique genetic markers suggesting they were a distinct population with advanced technological capabilities. Their genetic signature appears in populations from Ireland to Turkey, from North Africa to Scandinavia, a distribution pattern that could only have been achieved through extensive sea travel and maritime trade networks. The timing of ghost population Y's appearance is particularly significant. They emerge in the genetic record around 12,000 years ago and reach their peak influence around 10,000 years ago, exactly the period when Plato claimed Atlantis was at the height of its power. Then, around 8,000 years ago, their genetic signature begins to fade, suggesting their civilization declined or was absorbed into other populations. Recent analysis of mitochondrial DNA from ancient European populations has revealed another shocking discovery. Many show genetic markers indicating contact with populations that should have been geographically impossible to reach using known prehistoric transportation methods. For example, ancient remains from coastal Europe show genetic contributions from populations that appear to have originated in the Americas thousands of years before Columbus. This transatlantic genetic connection is supported by analysis of ancient DNA from both sides of the Atlantic. Native American populations show genetic markers that indicate contact with European populations around 10,000 years ago. Similarly, ancient European remains contain genetic signatures that could only have come from the Americas. This suggests extensive transatlantic contact during exactly the period when Plato claimed Atlantis controlled territories on both sides of the ocean. The most compelling evidence comes from analysis of ancient DNA extracted from underwater archaeological sites. Genetic material recovered from submerged settlements off the coasts of Spain, Italy, and Greece shows consistent patterns that suggest these sites were occupied by the same population. The mysterious ghost population Y that appears across such vast distances. What's particularly fascinating is that genetic analysis reveals this population possessed unique physiological adaptations that would have made them exceptionally suited for maritime life. They show genetic markers associated with enhanced lung capacity, improved underwater vision, and resistance to cold water. Exactly the adaptations you'd expect from a civilization that spent generations developing advanced seafaring capabilities. Recent advances in DNA analysis have also revealed evidence of sophisticated selective breeding programs among these ancient populations. Analysis of ancient livestock remains shows genetic modifications that shouldn't have been possible without advanced understanding of heredity and breeding techniques. This suggests technological and scientific knowledge far beyond what we typically attribute to prehistoric civilizations. The genetic evidence also supports Plato's claims about Atlantean metallurgy and technology. Populations associated with ghost population Y show genetic adaptations that suggest long-term exposure to metal smelting and advanced manufacturing processes. These include genetic variants that provide resistance to heavy metal toxicity and enhanced ability to process certain minerals, adaptations that would only develop in populations engaged in large-scale metallurgical operations. Analysis of ancient pathogen DNA has revealed another remarkable discovery. The populations associated with these underwater sites show evidence of immunity to diseases that originated in both the Old and New Worlds, suggesting extensive contact between populations that were supposedly isolated from each other. This immune profile could only have developed through regular contact across vast oceanic distances. Perhaps most significantly, genetic analysis of modern populations reveals that the descendants of ghost population Y didn't simply disappear. Their genetic signatures persist in populations around the Atlantic Rim, particularly in coastal communities with strong maritime traditions. These modern populations retain genetic markers that suggest their ancestors possessed advanced seafaring capabilities and maintained extensive trade networks across oceanic distances. The pattern that emerges from this genetic evidence is remarkable. A maritime civilization with global reach, advanced technology, and sophisticated understanding of navigation and trade, existing during exactly the time period Plato specified for Atlantis. After contributing to populations worldwide for several millennia, this civilization's genetic signature fades from the record around 8,000 years ago, suggesting a decline that matches Plato's account of Atlantis's destruction. What I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you understand human collective memory. And this absolutely deserves your like, because the pattern I'm going to show you appears in over 500 cultures worldwide with such specific similarities that it's statistically impossible to explain as coincidence. Indigenous oral traditions across every continent preserve detailed memories of advanced civilizations that were destroyed by catastrophic floods, and these memories match Plato's account of Atlantis with shocking precision. Let's start with the most remarkable discovery. Flood legends aren't random stories scattered across human cultures. They follow specific patterns that correlate directly with geological evidence of actual prehistoric flooding events. When researchers map the distribution of these legends against known sea level changes from the end of the last ice age, the correlation is nearly perfect. The Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh, one of humanity's oldest written stories, describes a great flood that destroyed an advanced civilization. But here's what most people don't realize. The flood account in Gilgamesh contains specific details that match both Plato's Atlantis story and geological evidence of massive flooding around 10,000 BC. The epic describes cities with sophisticated architecture, advanced metallurgy, and extensive trade networks that were suddenly destroyed when the gods opened the dikes of the abyssal waters. Hindu traditions preserve even more detailed memories in the Puranas, ancient texts that describe cycles of creation and destruction. These texts speak of Dvarka, a magnificent city ruled by Krishna that was swallowed by the ocean. Recent underwater archaeology off the coast of India has actually discovered the ruins of Dvarka, and carbon dating places its submersion at around 9,500 BC, remarkably close to Plato's date for Atlantis. Native American traditions are equally compelling. The Hopi speak of previous worlds that were destroyed by water, describing advanced civilizations with flying machines and sophisticated technology. The Maya Popol Vuh describes a flood that destroyed the wooden people, beings who had become too proud and forgotten their connection to the gods. These accounts consistently describe the destroyed civilizations as technologically advanced but morally corrupt, exactly the characterization Plato gave to Atlantis. Australian Aboriginal traditions, some of the oldest continuous oral histories in the world, preserve memories of when sea levels were much lower and vast coastal plains existed where there is now ocean. These stories, passed down for over 40,000 years, describe the gradual submersion of these lands as waters rose. Most significantly, they speak of advanced people who lived on these submerged lands and possessed knowledge of astronomy, navigation, and construction that was lost when the waters rose. What makes these global flood legends absolutely extraordinary is their specific details. They don't just describe random flooding. They describe the sudden destruction of advanced maritime civilizations that controlled extensive territories and possessed sophisticated technology. The Andean legend of Viracocha describes bearded, fair-skinned people who came from across the ocean, bringing advanced knowledge of agriculture, astronomy, and engineering. These visitors established great cities and then disappeared when the waters rose. Celtic traditions speak of Lyonesse, an advanced kingdom that existed between Cornwall and the Scilly Isles before being submerged by the sea. Archaeological evidence confirms that this area was indeed dry land during the last ice age and was gradually submerged as sea levels rose. Local traditions preserve remarkably accurate geographical details about the submerged landscape, suggesting these oral histories preserve actual memories of prehistoric events. The precision of these oral traditions is what makes them so compelling as evidence for Atlantis. They consistently describe civilizations with specific characteristics: advanced engineering, sophisticated astronomy, extensive trade networks, and sudden destruction by water. They also consistently date these events to around 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, exactly when geological evidence shows massive sea level changes occurred. Recent research into the psychology of collective memory has revealed that traumatic events affecting entire populations can be preserved in oral tradition with remarkable accuracy for thousands of years. The destruction of an advanced civilization by catastrophic flooding would certainly qualify as the kind of traumatic event that would be preserved in collective memory across multiple generations. What's particularly significant is that these flood legends often preserve technical details that wouldn't have been meaningful to the cultures that maintained them. Aboriginal Australian stories describe submerged reefs and navigation markers that are only visible today using modern sonar technology. This suggests the stories preserve actual navigational knowledge from when these areas were accessible to ancient mariners. The global distribution of these legends also matches the pattern you'd expect if Plato's account of Atlantis as a maritime empire were accurate. The most detailed flood legends appear in coastal regions around the Atlantic, Mediterranean, and Indian Oceans, exactly the areas where archaeological evidence of submerged settlements is being discovered. Perhaps most remarkably, many of these traditions explicitly state that survivors of the flood catastrophe traveled to distant lands, bringing their knowledge to other civilizations. This matches Plato's suggestion that Atlantean knowledge influenced the development of Egyptian and other ancient civilizations. Now comes the moment you've been waiting for, and this definitely deserves your like, because I'm going to show you exactly what Atlantis would have looked like based on everything we've discovered. By combining Plato's precise descriptions with geological evidence, archaeological discoveries, and modern climate modeling, we can reconstruct the real Atlantis with scientific accuracy that will leave you absolutely stunned. Based on all the evidence we've examined, here's what Atlantis actually was: a sophisticated Bronze Age civilization that existed on the continental shelf of the Atlantic Ocean when sea levels were 120 meters lower than today. This wasn't a single island, but a network of settlements built on what is now the submerged continental shelf, connected by an advanced maritime culture that dominated Atlantic trade routes between 12,000 and 8,000 years ago. The central city that Plato described would have been located on what geologists call a continental shelf island, elevated areas of the seafloor that were dry land during the last ice age. Recent bathymetric mapping has identified numerous such formations off the coasts of Spain, Portugal, and northwest Africa that match Plato's dimensions and circular geography. Using advanced climate modeling, we can reconstruct the environment these Atlanteans would have inhabited. During the period from 15,000 to 10,000 years ago, the Atlantic continental shelf supported lush grasslands, forests, and river systems. The climate was temperate and stable, perfect for supporting large populations and advanced agriculture. This matches Plato's description of Atlantis as extraordinarily fertile and productive. The engineering capabilities Plato attributed to the Atlanteans now make perfect sense in light of recent archaeological discoveries. Sites like Göbekli Tepe demonstrate that prehistoric civilizations possessed sophisticated understanding of astronomy, advanced stoneworking techniques, and the organizational capability to coordinate massive construction projects. The concentric ring design Plato described would have been an optimal defensive and hydraulic engineering solution for a maritime civilization. Recent analysis of ocean current patterns during the last ice age reveals that the continental shelf areas where Atlantis would have existed were positioned at the center of major Atlantic circulation systems. This would have made them natural hubs for maritime trade networks, exactly as Plato described Atlantis controlling commerce across the Atlantic. The metallurgical capabilities Plato attributed to Atlantis are now supported by archaeological evidence of advanced prehistoric metalworking. Recent discoveries of sophisticated alloys, precision casting, and advanced smelting techniques from the Bronze Age demonstrate that ancient civilizations possessed far more advanced metallurgical knowledge than previously believed. The mysterious orichalcum Plato mentioned has been found in archaeological contexts, confirming it was a real material. Genetic modeling based on ancient DNA evidence suggests the Atlantean population would have been a maritime-adapted people with unique physiological characteristics optimized for life at sea. They would have possessed enhanced lung capacity, improved underwater vision, and genetic resistance to the effects of long-term ocean travel, explaining their ability to maintain trade networks across vast oceanic distances. The agricultural system Plato described becomes scientifically plausible when we consider the environmental conditions of the continental shelf during the last ice age. The area would have supported sophisticated irrigation systems, terraced agriculture, and intensive cultivation that could have supported populations in the hundreds of thousands. Recent analysis of ancient pollen cores from the Atlantic seafloor confirms the existence of large-scale agriculture in now submerged areas during exactly this period. The destruction of Atlantis that Plato described matches perfectly with the geological record of the Younger Dryas period. Around 11,700 years ago, rapid climate change caused massive sea level rise, violent storms, and catastrophic flooding that would have destroyed any coastal civilization within decades. The specific timeline Plato provides aligns with ice core data showing the most rapid environmental changes in Earth's recent history. Using computer modeling, we can reconstruct exactly how this destruction would have occurred. As massive ice sheets melted, meltwater pulses raised sea levels by several meters within centuries. The continental shelf areas where Atlantis existed would have been progressively submerged, forcing populations to retreat to higher ground or evacuate by sea. The final destruction would have come when underwater avalanches and tsunamis, triggered by the massive environmental changes, swept across the remaining land areas. The survivors of this catastrophe would have carried their knowledge to other civilizations, explaining the sudden appearance of advanced technologies in ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Americas around 10,000 years ago. This matches Plato's suggestion that Egyptian civilization preserved Atlantean knowledge and explains the remarkable similarities between megalithic construction techniques found worldwide. What emerges from this scientific reconstruction is not the fantasy island of popular imagination, but a sophisticated Bronze Age maritime civilization that developed advanced technology, established global trade networks, and was ultimately destroyed by one of the most catastrophic climate events in human history. The evidence supporting this reconstruction has become so compelling that it's forcing archaeologists to reconsider everything we thought we knew about prehistoric human capabilities. What we've discovered about Atlantis forces us to confront a truth that will revolutionize our understanding of human civilization. And this absolutely deserves your like, because what I'm about to reveal means that everything you learned about ancient history needs to be completely rewritten. The evidence for advanced prehistoric civilizations doesn't just confirm Plato's account. It suggests that human technological development has been cyclical rather than linear, with sophisticated civilizations rising and falling multiple times throughout our species' history. The implications are staggering. If Atlantis existed as the evidence suggests, then human civilization is thousands of years older than mainstream archaeology acknowledges. The traditional narrative of human development, from primitive hunter-gatherers to agricultural societies to urban civilizations, is fundamentally wrong. Instead, we're looking at a pattern of recurring technological development, where advanced civilizations develop sophisticated capabilities, are destroyed by natural catastrophes, and then slowly rebuild over millennia. This cyclical model explains numerous anomalies in the archaeological record that mainstream science has struggled to address. Why do we find evidence of advanced metallurgy, precision stonework, and sophisticated astronomy in supposedly primitive cultures? Why do ancient texts from around the world describe technologies that seem far beyond the capabilities of their time? The answer is that these primitive cultures were actually the survivors of much more advanced civilizations. The genetic evidence we've examined suggests that modern humans have been capable of sophisticated technological development for far longer than previously believed. The rapid development of complex civilizations in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley around 5,000 years ago wasn't the beginning of human civilization. It was a recovery period following the destruction of even more advanced prehistoric societies. This has profound implications for how we understand technological development. Many of the innovations we attribute to ancient civilizations may actually be rediscoveries of technologies that were first developed thousands of years earlier. The precision of ancient stone cutting, the sophistication of ancient astronomy, and the extent of ancient trade networks all make more sense if we assume these civilizations were rebuilding on foundations laid by their Atlantean predecessors. The evidence also suggests that prehistoric civilizations achieved technological capabilities that we're only now rediscovering. The advanced metallurgy, precision engineering, and sophisticated understanding of astronomy that we found in prehistoric sites indicates that human technological capability may have peaked during the Atlantean period and has been gradually recovering ever since. This realization has massive implications for archaeology and anthropology. If advanced civilizations existed 12,000 years ago, then we need to completely revise our understanding of human social and technological development. The complexity of sites like Göbekli Tepe, the sophistication of underwater ruins, and the extent of prehistoric trade networks all point to civilizations that were far more advanced than the hunter-gatherer societies that mainstream archaeology places in this time period. The implications extend beyond archaeology to our understanding of climate change and civilization resilience. The destruction of Atlantis demonstrates that even highly advanced civilizations are vulnerable to rapid environmental change. The speed with which sea level rise destroyed continental shelf civilizations serves as a warning about the potential impacts of current climate change on modern coastal populations. Perhaps most significantly, the Atlantis evidence suggests that human knowledge and technological capability are not permanently cumulative. Advanced civilizations can be lost completely, taking their knowledge and capabilities with them. This means that our current technological civilization, despite its apparent sophistication, could be more vulnerable than we realize to the kind of catastrophic events that destroyed Atlantis. The global nature of the evidence, from underwater ruins to genetic signatures to flood legends, indicates that Atlantean civilization was truly worldwide in scope. This suggests that prehistoric humans achieved a level of global connectivity and cultural exchange that wouldn't be seen again until the modern era. The implications for our understanding of ancient migration, trade, and cultural development are revolutionary. Looking forward, the Atlantis evidence suggests we should be taking seriously the possibility that other mythological civilizations may also be based on historical reality. Lemuria, Mu, and other lost civilizations described in ancient texts may preserve memories of additional prehistoric advanced societies that were destroyed by natural catastrophes. The discovery and excavation of underwater archaeological sites will likely reveal much more evidence of these lost civilizations in the coming decades. As technology improves and sea levels continue to change, we may uncover physical proof that will definitively confirm the existence of Atlantis and other prehistoric advanced civilizations. What this means for humanity is profound. We are not the first technological civilization on Earth, and we may not be the last. Understanding the rise and fall of our predecessors could provide crucial insights for ensuring the survival and continuity of our own civilization in the face of environmental challenges and natural catastrophes. After examining all this evidence, geological, archaeological, genetic, and historical, we can now answer the question that has puzzled humanity for over 2,000 years. Was Atlantis real? The answer is a resounding yes, but not in the way most people imagine. And if you've made it this far in the video, you definitely deserve to hit that like button, because what we've discovered together challenges everything mainstream history wants you to believe about our ancient past. Atlantis was not a fantasy island with magic crystals and flying machines. It was a sophisticated Bronze Age maritime civilization that developed on the continental shelves of the Atlantic Ocean during the last ice age, when sea levels were much lower than today. This civilization developed advanced engineering, metallurgy, astronomy, and navigation capabilities that allowed them to establish trade networks spanning the globe. The evidence we've examined paints a clear picture. Between 15,000 and 8,000 years ago, while mainstream archaeology claims humans were primitive hunter-gatherers, there existed a technologically advanced civilization that controlled maritime trade routes, built sophisticated cities, and possessed scientific knowledge that wouldn't be rediscovered for millennia. Plato's account, rather than being pure fiction, was based on genuine historical memories preserved in Egyptian records. The Egyptian priests who told Solon about Atlantis were maintaining oral and written traditions that preserved accurate information about this prehistoric civilization. Plato's noble lie was actually a historically accurate account disguised as philosophical allegory. The destruction of this civilization around 11,700 years ago coincided with one of the most catastrophic climate events in Earth's history. The Younger Dryas period brought rapid environmental change, massive sea level rise, and possibly cosmic impacts that destroyed coastal civilizations worldwide. The survivors of this catastrophe carried their knowledge to other regions, explaining the sudden appearance of advanced technologies in ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Americas. What makes this discovery so significant is what it reveals about human capability and the cyclical nature of civilization. We are not the first technologically advanced society on Earth. Our prehistoric ancestors achieved remarkable feats of engineering, astronomy, and navigation that demonstrate human potential has remained consistent across millennia. What changes is not our capability, but our accumulated knowledge and the environmental conditions that allow civilizations to flourish. The implications for our understanding of history are revolutionary. Ancient megalithic sites, sophisticated astronomical alignments, and advanced metallurgical techniques that seem impossible for their time periods become explainable when we recognize that these civilizations were rebuilding on knowledge inherited from their Atlantean predecessors. The genetic evidence shows that modern populations around the Atlantic Rim carry DNA signatures of these ancient people, meaning we are literally their descendants. The knowledge and capabilities that allowed them to traverse oceans and build advanced civilizations live on in us, waiting to be rediscovered and developed. Perhaps most importantly, the story of Atlantis serves as both inspiration and warning. It demonstrates that humans are capable of achieving remarkable technological and social sophistication, but it also shows that even the most advanced civilizations can be destroyed by environmental catastrophes beyond their control. As we face our own environmental challenges and the possibility of rapid climate change, the lessons of Atlantis become particularly relevant. The speed with which sea level rise destroyed continental shelf civilizations reminds us that our current coastal cities and technological infrastructure could be equally vulnerable to environmental changes. But there's also reason for optimism in the Atlantis story. Despite the destruction of their civilization, the knowledge and capabilities of the Atlanteans were not permanently lost. Survivors carried their wisdom to other regions, and eventually, human civilization recovered and began developing new technologies and capabilities. The search for Atlantis is far from over. As underwater archaeology technology continues to improve, we can expect to discover more physical evidence of these submerged civilizations. The next decades will likely bring discoveries that will definitively prove the existence of advanced prehistoric societies and force a complete revision of human history. What we've learned about Atlantis should make us both humble and proud. Humble, because we recognize that our current technological achievements build on foundations laid by our ancient predecessors. Proud, because we understand that the human capacity for innovation, exploration, and civilization building is far more ancient and resilient than we ever imagined. The truth about Atlantis is that it was never lost. It lives on in us, in our DNA, in our inherited knowledge, and in our continued drive to explore, discover, and build civilizations that can span the globe. We are not just the descendants of Atlantis. We are its continuation, carrying forward the same human potential that once built great cities on the continental shelves of the ancient world. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through one of history's greatest mysteries. If this video has changed how you think about our ancient past, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who are ready to question everything they thought they knew about human civilization.